Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, a high school dean at the center of a social media firestorm appears in court. We've got the latest on the Shantytown hearing. The environment minister says the oil spill near Arawak Key has been cleaned up. Plus, how prepared are you if disaster strikes?
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. A high school dean at the center of a social media firestorm appearing in court today, seeking to get an extension on bail. Giorgio Bain was in the courtroom and has more.
Outrage erupted on social media last week after the photo of a student who was allegedly disciplined by a school administrator went viral. On one hand, alumni of the school stood in support of the dean, and others were upset that the child was beaten to the point of bruising. St. Augustine's College Dean of Students Reginald Forbes came before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt seeking an extension on his bail Thursday afternoon. Police have charged Forbes with causing harm to a minor, but he has not yet been arraigned before the magistrate's court. Forbes was represented by attorney Jerome Roberts, who said his client was ordered by his bail conditions to appear in court on June 6. The court was packed with SAC alumni dressed in red in support of the dean. Those who could not fit inside the court were packed on the outside of the South Street complex, waiting for Forbes to exit. According to the prosecution, Forbes' file is still being reviewed and therefore it could not be available for court today. Ferguson Pratt granted the bail extension. His file is still under review, but he could be charged in the magistrate's court as early as next week. Supporters waited on the outside for about 30 minutes before the dean, accompanied by the school's principal, hurried out and left in a waiting vehicle. Reporting for Our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Tourism Minister Dionysio de Aguilar today labeled the former administration's decision to lease space at the Western Air Terminal in San Andres another bad PLP deal. He revealed that the lease agreement was worth nearly $250,000 a year. Jasmine Brown has more.
The tourism minister made the comments as he gave his contribution to the 2019-2020 budget debate. He told Parliament that the board of the airport authority is moving out of the Western Air Terminal at the San Andres Airport into brand new trailers which were recently installed. The tourism minister said the move was prompted by the outrageous costs that the government was incurring to rent space in the Western Air Terminal.
When I took office and learned that the airport authority was paying $60 a square foot, $60 a square foot to rent space in a building in Andres at a staggering cost of $205,200 a year, I said, hell no. The lease was brought to my attention when it came up for renewal in February 2018, and the landlord requested an increase in the rent to $84 a square foot. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I had to say, hell no.
While de Aguilar said he had no issue with the move because of the conditions of the previous trailers, he said the price was simply too high. He also said over the 4-year life of the arrangement, the airport authority incurred rent totaling almost $800,000. He also noted that the deal went down days before the May 2017 general election.
Yet the airport authority was ordered on May the 4th, 2017, by the previous administration to enter into a lease, which, by the way, was never executed since no one seems to have a copy of it, retroactive to March 2015, to rent 3,063 square feet in the Western Air Terminal for $60 a square foot, costing the airport authority $205,200 a year, inclusive of that, or $17,100 per month in rent. I'm advised that 2 years' worth of rent, or $395,127, was advanced to the airport authority from the Treasury in May 2017, and the rent was paid to Western Air.
His assessment of the situation did not sit well with the former aviation minister, who quickly fired back.
The member has not given the totality of the arrangement nor the appropriate background, and he has not admitted that they have been paying this rent for 2 years. So to the extent that it was a PLP bad deal for a couple of months, It's been, and there's no lease to be found. You just said there was no lease to be found. You just said there was no lease to be found. It has been as much a bad deal for the Free National Movement.
Her extended response prompted a back and forth between Hannah Martin and the House Speaker.
Honourable member,
yes,
you are raising on a point of order.
Yes, the member said special interest. Yes.
I have allowed you to go.
Thank you. He's misleading. He said special interest. Western Air, he said special interest. Western Air has accommodation at the airport. No one else does. They're special in that way. They're the only one that had accommodations there. Furthermore, the member has omitted to advise that that arrangement was involved with the Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance and involved
Honourable member.
Real property tax
Honourable member.
set off against the rents.
While the chair is speaking, yes, you do not speak. Honourable member, resume your seat. Resume your seat. When the speaker is speaking, you remain quiet. How much time? We've been here for 2 years now. You still have not accepted that basic principle of the rules. Well, if you don't want to be lectured, you can withdraw.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
A Supreme Court judge will decide which documents government will hand over to 177 Shantytown residents sometime after September 12th. Jared Higgs has more.
Those 177 applicants sought to compel the Crown to hand over documents related to the decision it made to evict them from their homes. However, the discovery application was opposed by Crown Attorney Lauren Klein, who argued that the application for discovery was not made in the correct manner. Appearing before Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson, Klein pointed to several rules that he says compel the applicants to make an interlocutory application in order to invoke the court's jurisdiction for discovery. He contended that all that was before the court is a foreshadowing of an application and a notice of hearing date, which has since been adjourned. Supporting his argument with excerpts from academic texts, as well as a 2015 Bahamas Court of Appeal decision, Klein insisted that the application in question must be made by summons. Rising on behalf of the 177 Shantytown residents was attorney Martin Lundy II. He told the court that a written response to Klein's submissions could be made within a week. Justice Thompson set a deadline of June 11th for those written submissions to be on her desk. Klein will have 2 weeks to respond in writing. The matter will be heard in open court on September 12th. Back in August 2018, the Shantytown residents got a court injunction days before their homes were set to be demolished. The applicants have filed an application for judicial review. However, they say that they need policy documents, Shantytown Action Task Force core and operational documents, Crown title documents, communication documents, decision-making documents, and the building assessment report in order to move forward. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Protecting children from sexual violence. That was the premise of a march held today by members of the religious community. Community activists said they were calling on lawmakers to beef up sexual abuse legislation. Jillian Gray reports.
The march against child molestation began at Clifford Park and ended just a few feet away from the House of Assembly. Organizers of the event are petitioning the government for stiffer penalties for sexual offenders.
Every stop you're getting petitions so that when we go to the lawmakers, we have the people backing us with their signatures. So everything is in the plan, not only to march, but also that we will see changes for stiffer penalties.
Prophetess Rosie Rackley founded the march in her hometown of Grand Bahama and plans to take the tour to the Family Islands. Their next stop is Bimini, and she said her hope is that lawmakers and the community can come together to better protect children against sexual predators. Assistant organizer Elaine Hinsey said they've gotten numerous calls from all over the Bahamas since starting the movement. One of the testimonies that came across their desk was from a mother whose daughter lost her life after being raped. Hinsey said they are now simply trying to provide counseling to the victims who have come forth.
There was another young lady who also called in. She was unable to be here because she had to work, but she also said to let us know that she has given us her support because she has been gang raped, plus raped by cousins, overly and repeatedly being raped by family members. And so as a result of this, I'm sure a lot more will come forth after they would have seen those 3 who have actually given their testimonies today. And we don't call them victims. No. We call them survivors.
At the march, organizers allowed survivors of sexual abuse to share their stories in an effort to encourage other victims to come forward. The women encouraged victims and parents to speak up.
You don't have anything to be afraid of. There's no fear. You did nothing wrong. You are the victim. And so I use the word predator because you are being preyed upon. Okay, so I would tell anyone to just speak up. Tell anyone, shout it from the mountaintop, because if one person don't believe you, then the other one will.
It's extremely important for the parental support. Children have to be believed, and it's our responsibility to protect them and be accountable for them. So if they're aware of their children being abused, they have to go to the authorities. They have to report whoever it is that's responsible. They have to, take the lead to protect their children. If you're not protecting your children, you're worthless.
The small contingent was supported not only by religious leaders and community activists, but also political leaders. Leader of the DNA, Orinthia Komalafe, said a sexual offenders registry must be implemented.
We're just here to show our support for the survivors, persons who have been the victim of molestation. We want to do whatever we can to stop those that are now suffering from molestation. And a major part of that is calling upon our lawmakers who have the power in the House of Parliament to be able to effect the relevant laws to bring stiffer penalties against the perpetrators of child molestation. And in that vein, we support the full implementation of Marco's Law, which has been dragging for many years, as you know. And so things that we are asking for is for the institution and the implementation of a sexual offenders court, the list of sexual offenders. We want that to be implemented as well.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Environment Minister Amal Ferreira claiming the oil spill near Arawak has been cleaned up. On Monday, our news showed you that oil spill caught in a revetment. Ferreira said while the oil has been cleaned up, officials have still not been able to conclude where the oil came from.
Well, we don't know if somebody deliberately placed it there, if it was a release from land, if it was a release from a vessel. That's part of really not knowing where it came from. So they've yet to be able to determine that, to advise us the source of the oily substance.
Any idea how long that will take?
No, I'm saying that they still don't know when. Right, they don't know the source. So how long it'll take, they haven't told me.
When our news visited the site on Monday, we found thick oil floating atop the water and caught in between a few rocks just a few yards away from where food vendors store their fresh conch for consumption. We went back today and found that the oil was gone. However, there was still a lot of garbage.
All incidences like this that happen in a port area really fall under the remit of the Port Department. And of course, OSAC, which is the National Oil Spill Committee, have taken charge of this matter so that essentially they would have all the relevant details.
Still to come, the tourism minister calling on calmer heads to prevail in a hotel labor dispute. Plus, just how prepared are you if disaster strikes? Stay tuned.